we've been fighting for the legislative framework, setting the foundation. We're not saying that all of pharmacare should be in the next budget. That's not what we asked for. We've been very clear. In fact, it's written clearly in what we fought for and what we negotiated. So they know that. They also know, and we know, why they have been dragging their feet. They've been dragging their feet. They've been stringing Canadians along for 3 decades. Let's not forget, the Liberals promised pharmacare in 1997. For decades, they've been breaking this promise. The Liberals, under Justin Trudeau, promised pharmacare themselves in their own campaigns, yet continue to break this promise. They say the same thing again and again. Jurisdiction, it's going to be hard to work with provinces. It's going to cost too much. These are excuses that they've been giving for 3 decades. We're saying enough's enough. It's in what we fought for. We have given the Prime Minister a deadline, a very firm deadline. He's got to deliver this by the 1st of March. He's got to stop trying to appease big pharma and big insurance companies and put in place the legal framework that's good for that young boy, that's good for those seniors that I've met, to make sure we move forward with a universal coverage for all Canadians. So this is no longer a worry. We are fighting for that first big step forward. That's what we're fighting for. That's what the Liberals are well aware. And I've said to them, I've said to Justin Trudeau directly, if they do not follow through on this, if they break their promise yet again to Canadians, there will be consequences. I also want to take a moment to reflect on what's happened recently in Manitoba. And I just can't even imagine. I can't even think of the words to describe what's going on. But let us be clear what happened. This is gender-based violence. This was a man who killed his own children and his partner. We are faced with an epidemic of violence against women in our country. Many groups have been saying we need to call this an emergency, call it for what it is. My heart breaks for everyone impacted. My solidarity and thoughts to the family and to the friends directly impacted. But what we need to do now in the face of this horrible gender-based violence is commit to ending that violence. Je veux vous rappeler.
I would like to say, I would like to remind you who we are fighting for when we're talking about pharmacare. We're fighting for our seniors who need to choose between groceries or medication. We're fighting to build a pharmacare program that works for people, for workers, families, and seniors. And for a long time, we were clear with the Liberals. It's been clear. They're looking to please big pharma and big insurance companies, and we do not agree with that. So we gave them a deadline of March 1st. By that time, we want a bill to build the foundation for a pharmacare program. The Liberals are saying it's too expensive, it's too hard to work for the provinces. And that's the same excuse they've used for decades because they've been promising a pharmacare program for 30 years. So we're saying that's enough with the excuses. We need a bill now. This is what we have forced the Liberals to accept. And now, I said to Justin Trudeau, you have until March 1st to deliver this bill. Otherwise, there will be consequences. And I was firm on that. Finally, I want to take a moment to share my condolences to everyone who has been impacted by what happened in Manitoba. It's truly horrific, and I really don't have the words to express how horrific. But it was gender-based violence. It was a man who killed his partner and his family. We need to acknowledge that this is a problem across the country. We're seeing an explosion of violence against women and gender-based violence, and we need to respond to this crisis.
With that, I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Singh, can you please clarify if the NDP expect in the bill there to be a system for single-payer pharmacare?
Yes, what we have said very clearly, our expectation is, well, frankly, it's the expectation, not just my expectation, not just New Democrats, all experts, and in fact, the Liberal government's own commissioned report confirms the best way forward that's going to save everyone money, it's going to save families money, the kid that I talked about, seniors that are worried, provinces, the federal government, the best way forward that's going to save everyone money is a single-payer universal program.
And can you clarify if you believe that the negotiations are progressing and a deal will be in place by March 1st with the bill? Or is your sense right now that it won't happen?
My sense right now is I don't know which way it's going. And that's why I made it very clear to the Prime Minister that that's what we expect. And after that meeting, I said that it was a difficult meeting because I did not get clear assurances that this would be resolved. And that's why I'm saying very clearly to Justin Trudeau and to the Liberals, you can't keep on stringing Canadians along. You can't keep on breaking your promise. We expect legislation that lays out that foundation, and it's got to be universal and single payer. We're not saying the money's got to be in the budget. That's never been our ask, and we've never said that. So the Liberals try to spin folks and say that's what we're asking for. It's not the case. But we do expect legislation that lays the foundation, and that's what we're asking for. The Liberals know that. Justin Trudeau knows that. And we'll see what happens on March 1st.
Are you then ready for an election?
Est-ce que la conséquence, c'est que vous déchirez l'entente au 1er mars à minuit? Est-ce que quand vous parlez de conséquence, c'est quoi exactement?
S'il brise l'entente, donc l'entente est brisée, donc oui. Donc si il brise l'entente, l'entente n'existe pas.
So if the agreement doesn't work, then the elements of the agreement will not continue to exist. There's no guarantee that we would continue to support legislation or passing bills. If the agreement is broken, it's broken. So all consequences are on the table if they break that agreement.
How do you said last week that just because the deal is broken doesn't mean you're going to let the government fall. You might still support them. So then you would be in the position of getting even less from the government. Because the deal's broken, you're not getting pharmacare, but then even though you're not getting pharmacare, still supporting the government. I just don't understand how that works. How does this not lead to an election if you don't have a deal by March 1st?
There's lots of alternatives, and I'm not going to get into the details here, but I can tell you, generally speaking, there's lots of things that the Liberals look to us based on what we've negotiated. And those things will no longer be on the table. We will no longer support passage of bills. We will no longer speed up the passage of bills. We're not like the Conservatives and preemptively going to determine how we're voting on a budget that we've not seen. So we're not going to say that today. We'll look at the budget. We'll make an assessment if it's something we'll support or not. But what happens if they break the agreement? Then there is no agreement in place. Then we are not entitled. We are not in any way required to continue to provide any support if they break their side of the agreement.
But does it not undermine your ability to threaten this government by saying, hey, we're not really going to threaten you to, call an election or to go for an election?
Everything's on the table. If the agreement's not in place, we're saying that none of our votes should be taken for granted. The agreement will be broken. If they break the agreement, they walk away from the agreement, there is nothing that they can expect from us then. We will negotiate. We'll negotiate every vote at a time. We're not like the Conservatives to presuppose and say we're going to vote against everything. We will make our determination based on each vote that comes before us. But with the agreement, we had in place a certain understanding that there would be votes would go a certain way. That will no longer happen.
Saluez le gain que vous avez fait sur la loi anti-briseur de grève en déchirant l'entente.
C'est les libéraux qui vont déchirer l'entente. C'est clair. S'ils brisent leurs promesses, c'est les libéraux qui brisent leur entente. Et il y a du travail qui reste. On va continuer de faire notre travail, de forcer le gouvernement de faire ce qu'il faut, comme on a fait dans le passé. Le anti-briseur de grève, c'est un exemple d'une loi qu'on a forcé le gouvernement de déposer.
Is an example of legislation that we forced the government to pass, and we'll continue to put pressure. Question? Right now in the polls, Mr. Poilievre and the Conservatives are fully ahead. It says that there's a high chance that there would be a majority Conservative government. Does that change the perspective? How would you feel as the NDP leader of forcing an election that might bring the Conservatives in? Answer? I put the question.